In the midst of the Orks' decline, who has made their rise? Today at WAAAGH Wednesday, we'll be covering the stats and the facts on who's winning and how you can too. Of course, the honorable mentions as we always do, and then the top players' performance of this weekend, or even in this case, possibly the weekend before. So welcome to WAAAGH Wednesday, you gets. Whoa. So even though some of the boys are down and out, we ain't mucking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Tiger. So shout out to the chat. Of course, this is live. We're going to have our poll, so participate in that as well. Don't forget. So we're going to come in, of course, first, and I just poked it out, but I was too excited. We're going to look at the stats and the facts. So what's up, everyone? Ooh, I got some good chats already. So remember, we're going to do the chats periodically through here while we're talking with you gits when I'm doing the stats and the facts. And then when I get into the keen list I'm going to cover, I'll put the chats and come back to them, okay? So if you got something to say it real quick now before we get into it fully. But we have 39 Ork players over this past weekend with a 44% win rate, which doesn't look as bad as some people might have thought. Of course, it's better than last weekend, about 42 before. We've fallen, we're still not where we want to be, and that is what it is. But let's look at who's actually winning and what we're doing about it as an Ork community. Really like to see the diversity here as I go forward with all of these, right? So I'm proud of the gits who still, if you guys had a hard weekend, because I've seen some of us did, it's all good. You guys are getting out there, getting creative like we always encourage around here. This is the time, right? This is the time. So great job to everyone. So starting off with the secret tech that's been happening here is Dread Mob. We have 2 X and 1 placings of Dread Mob. One of those lists we will be covering today because it's an archetype that I have previously never seen. I hadn't even written on my list before. I had some pieces, of course, but there was so much diversity in it that I really appreciated it. So we're going to cover that Dread Mob list. Tactical Brigade, and Dread Mob was 59% win for those 6 players that were there. So shout out to that. Tactical Brigade was 55% win rate with 2 players. What happened was one person kind of lost a lot of games. The other one came to War Horde with the most player representation of 19 players. Shout out to the War Horde gang, right? Like keeping it basic. We got 45% win rate, and we do have an X and 1 that we're going to have as an honorable mention vote. Then we're looking at the Hunt. Shout out to you, the Hunt gets, because I've played that Detachment probably more than most, other people who generally talk about Orks that are not, always giving the most meta advice. The Hunt is actually quite difficult to master and get going. So I appreciate you gets because it's really really niche and stringent. So the Hunt players, 40% win rate. Then we have Cult of Speed. So last week we did have a Cult of Speed player that went undefeated. And, a lot of people in the comments were like, well, we're going to take a nerf now. And some of it was facetious, right? We were joking. But then some of us were maybe kind of actually worried. If you're a new player, you might think that GW just laser points us and gets us, right? But I didn't think that to be the case. I think it was very much the pilot. I ran Cult of Speed as well. Got my teeth knocked out sometimes. It's difficult to run as well. Like all the weaknesses that I cover in the videos, are true. I felt them myself. It's not just, what I'm anecdotal. It is anecdotal, but it's not just what I've seen people tell me. It's also my anecdotal experience. So this weekend, they didn't shine that way for this. Shout out to the 2 players, 36% win rate, but it does have its way. But I think it also needs the right win path. And then we have Green Tide, which is somewhat surprising, I'm sure, to us old heads, right? Or some of Grognards, whatever you guys want to say, or our boys from the past. Whenever we went into like a high toughness meta, high skew of elite infantry, stuff like that, a lot of the time, our mob styles, our mob fundamentals of something like a Tide would be the direct meta counter. And it would really shine and push through, even if it was a small percentage of players. In this case, Green Tide's taking huge a hard time, and 31% where you're taking huge differences in its win rate. Some of that could be just pilots, moving on, or they already, it's really taxing Detachment to play. So, this isn't for sure, but I do think that this comes into the factor that some armies just have actually really, really nasty, potent defensive volume output. They take the initiative away from Green Tide, really can't get their fights going where they want. A lot of weird tech pieces to hold people back. And like I said, Detachment itself takes the person to understand the nuance of the Detachment. So you're already a small niche player pool, and then that niche player pool has had to adjust to a large variety and adapt of opponents. So either they're still developing that, or they haven't figured it out, and they might not at all until some of these meta bullies get nerfed. So I love my Green Tide. Like you guys know, I started as a Green Tide player, but I can see why from all my Green Tide playing when I was playing it back last year a lot. So then we have more DACA at a 27% win rate. Shout out to those 3 gits that went out there and tried their best. Between all 3 of them, they got 1 W. I mean, each, right? And that's just to reflect that more DACA is a trash. No offense to people. I think the strats are good and people who are interested in it, but it's a trash detachment rule, right? You're paying a whole detachment rule for I get assault on weapons that innately hit on 5s or 6s. That's terrible, right? Other people would be so absolutely upset about that. And you get sustain 1 when there's sustain 1 all over the game, whether it's data sheets or cross auras that people can give each other. Like let's say a Hellbrute, right? With its aura, you take some dark packs and it can be on critical 5+, lethal or sustain or both sometimes. That's just from like model synergy. It's not like restricted to just your detachment. You're playing for the whole more DACA detachments. You can get assault and then access to their stretch, which I actually do like because they're quite universal. But the detachment rule itself of sustain 1 only on the wall is trash. So I totally appreciate people who are trying it out, but it's so just a shadow of what it used to be, just like Tactical Brigade, where GW just didn't understand its own detachment, and then once they nerfed it, they just were like, oh well, we'll just leave it like that because people aren't playing anymore. And then we have the downfall of what everybody truly loves in the back of their heart, the Bully Boys. Whether you're an old player, new player, whatever it is, if you're told you have the exception of 2 Waaghs now, you'd be absolutely ecstatic. You'd be all over the place. And then we get it. And it's completely restrictive, not really dynamic stratagems, no synergy between units, and lacking on damage when it's called Bully Boys. So here we are with Bully Boys having its 27% win rate from the 3 players that actually played them. I'm not saying it's completely horrible. Definitely not, because I've had some good games with Bully Boys. And actually, you're going to see in the honorable mentions from last weekend, we have a Bully Boys list that you guys can vote to see. But I really think it comes down to someone actually having to get their teeth knocked out a little bit to understand, well, I'm really lacking kind of some guns here. I'm lacking synergy in some cases, or I need to pay the big taxes for all the elite bricks to get what I want and then be an excellent pilot. Like we've seen in the past where people still pull it off, but then they were like, man, maybe would that have been easier as just War Horde or something? Kind of comes down to the question sometimes, right? So absolutely appreciate Bully Boys. We're having 2 Waaghs. I'm glad that we even have access to something cool like that. But a lot of the time, the results just haven't been showing month in and month out. GW still have the Mega Knobs cost too much. Don't have enough diversity in the unit classifications, and it's lacking on damage. Oh, so many things. But with that Bully Boys list we're about to look over as the honorable mentions, I think you should get excited. So here are the honorable mentions. If you guys want one of these covered, vote now, because this is live. So whoever wins the vote after I go over the list that I picked that I wanted to go over, which is going to be the Dread Mob list, you guys will let me know from the live chat. So shout out to you gits that are here. War for the boys. But we have Bully Boys, and it was a team event format, which is kind of interesting because they had WTC and GW terrain, being split among the teams, had to play, they had half of them had to play on WTC, half to play on GW. So I pretty much like that. Ork player win 5-0. The Ork player is actually the #1 player at the whole event, and it was a 50-person event. And then we have War Horde, 4-1, solid, great job. I actually really like the War Horde list that I observed, and maybe people just have an interest in War Horde on what's actually working, or so if you guys want to see that, let me know right now on the poll. And then, of course, suggestions. If you're someone watching this in the future, leave a comment. Right now, we have our boy Tyler Blue that he left a comment letting me know about the Bully Boys, which I missed it. There's a lot of stuff going on, and he goes, hey, there's this awesome Bully Boys list. Maybe you want to do that. So shout out to you, Tyler. I appreciate you for that, for bringing that to my attention, because it really excited me. It's really good news for us gits. What also excites me is today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice. So if you want to support the channel, check out our sponsor, the Baron of Dice, for the high quality custom dice from WAAAGHday. I use them for almost every single game I play, these or my Grot Revolution dice. So shout out to Baron of Dice. Support them and check them out in the description. 5% off because no one likes taxes. And of course, they help us do our paint competition. So we have the entries. They're in. Can't add any more. We have a bunch of them. And so we have that coming up on Friday, the 7/25. Give it a drop in for the support because we do it for the gits. But we have the Stompa this week, and we're excited about it. And let's move on to the list of this weekend. My big old forehead. We have our Dread Mob list from David Cottam. Now, David, I was going to actually put your name on here like I normally do for people, but I actually liked your list name for once, as I felt like it was a very nice simplified personification of what your list was going after, and I appreciated that because you said what you meant and you did what you meant, what you said, right? So shout out to you. I wanted to keep that, but this is David Cottam's with his 4-1 Dread Mob list, and his own archetype. Boy, this might be the 3 damage gate archetype. We'll see in the future, but let's start off. We have two big mechs. Good old big mechs. Now, you guys, what we talked about when the point changes, I brought to everyone's attention, as some of you guys probably already doing on your own because you're some cunning gits, is shock attack gun might simply cost too much for his keyword and its offensive buffing potential. So you might need to just pay for the discount version of him. The big mech with shock attack gun is, better with its AP, more spiking potential and damage, but it also is the random factor, which is going to hurt you once in a great while, even, but there's also the factor of, let's say you're going into demons, which are somewhat popular, and you make them take battle shock. They might be healing themselves. So it's not like universally 100% always the best option. And in this case, people are like, well, I'll just get for the flat 3 custom mega blasters, and then I got the melee diversity of this unit will shoot and it'll be able to charge. Some people will ask me, without watching the video, check out the videos when I talk about these things as well. But in short, the tank busters benefit the big mech as much as the big mech benefits them. Right, the pulsar rocket, really is awesome. Him giving them the keyword is great, and then the reroll 1. So they're and he wants the +1 to wound from them and the +1 to hit for shooting. So it's a cross living example of getting along. And then we have the big mech with shock attack gun, and he is with the looters. And this is only a 5-man because GW, like he always does, James Workshop, it's a little heavy-handed and had our looters get hit. I am not in the fan club of a bunch of 10-man looters anymore in my Dread Mob list, but typically a nice 10-man unit with a big mech with shotgun are generally universal with Git Finder goggles. Makes a huge difference that you have Git Finder goggles. That's why I will only use one, but it's somewhat understood as like a staple of Detachment. So I like that he actually swooped it up and just said, I'm going to go straight 5 Boyz. That does make it so that unit can become susceptible to Overwatch. But what's going on here is that the reroll hits that are given to the shock attack gun are the value. And when it comes down to Overwatch potential as well, you just need the rerolls for your big mech with shock attack gun for that 5 looters. And a lot of the time, the shock attack gun's the one that's doing the damage because people can't pop defensive buffs as well. You're already ignoring cover. If it's an armor or something like that, somebody enemy vehicle moving onto an objective, whether it's a little weako transport like hurt transporter or something, and it's susceptible to that much AP and ignoring cover. A lot of the time, people would just be like, "It's fine. I'll just pop lethal right here. I'll press the button because you're probably going to kill me right now with this little trash unit anyways. So I'll get a second activation out of it. I'll pop lethals, and then in this case, because if I just land any of these, it goes straight through your armor, and then I just roll D6s and you're toast. So." That's how that really a lot of the time works. But I like that he was risky enough to put the 5 points, the 5 model discount on there. Now you'll see a lot of this list as being brave and unique and different, which is what we promote here. I show you the list to encourage you, to get you to expand your mind, to get your squig juices, flowing after you ate the squig, right? You're trying to get creative out here by looking at these lists as an Ork player, and you take your own identity, your own preferences, and your meta into consideration. And this Git took his own meta and the meta as a whole into consideration, and I really love it. But last, he had a mech as his warlord. Of course, this is because you kind of want to you very much don't want to have a mech, a warlord that's easy to kill for the Imperial Knights matchup. We're going to be giving him a 5-up, feel no pain as soon as he dies. So if it's typically your Warboss and your Warboss goes out there with the 10-man unit of knobs, for example, you're like, this is my Warboss. Well, now you're either going to just disconnect him from that unit and make that unit kind of useless, or you're going to still invest it and then trade, give him a 5 feel no pain. So there's great value in just having a little secret baby war mech boss like that. And he does have something to buff with it. Not a bunch of stuff, but he has just enough. And keep in mind, the mech can add, into certain units in the game, which isn't always explored anymore. So we have a 10-man unit of the Boyz, because you know how 10 Boyz are just great utility, how they fight along the field, give you more presence, great skirmishers, they can throw grenades, sticky, all that good stuff. I'll never bat an eye on anybody adding at least 1 Boyz units to the list, right? Then we have 4 battle line minimum size Gretchen units. Absolutely love my Gretchen units. always constantly winning me games. Then we have 2 trucks, simply 2. I really like the mix up here and the choice selection of minimalist killer characters, 4 characters that is quite cheap amount of points invest in his character, so he can invest them in everything else in his utility pieces and his killing potential. And only 2 trucks, didn't go overboard. I like when you can only fit 2 trucks. They pretty much take up the nice staging locations, and they become great value, and it's only a couple of them, and there's a bunch of other armor integrated in this list and mixed throughout it. Speaking of, which is something we haven't seen in maybe a year, 9 months, something like that, is a Death Dread. Let's go. Ooh, for the Death Dread. I know some of you get, you're like, man, I ain't never seen one of those boys. He's dusty as heck on my shelf. I know. I was taking them for a spin and I rejected it. I mean, I not rejected it. I regretted it to a degree where I was testing them out. But shout out to my get here because he has a Death Dread with 4 Dread Claws. He went full in, baby boys. I appreciate that. 3 damage gits, like you said. 2 5-man units of flash gits, because there's absolutely no comparison to another support unit, versatile unit than a flash gits for your SWAT team, right? I am scraping points off the bottom of the barrel to not take a burner boy over a flash gits unit. That's how significant the difference is in these units' utility. So I absolutely love it. Gorkanaut, he's of course gives something for the mech to love and support. There are some list styles where people will add the more mech to a unit and then give that unit the access to the keyboard, the button for Dread Mob. So cool. Now we have 2 3-man units of killer cans with rockets. Whoa, you guys know I love the rockets. You guys know that I love the killer cans. But I've always advised like just one big 6-man brick that you really to invest in. When I did my killer cans video, wasn't certain about 3-mans, wasn't like poo-pooing them, just was never certain for me. But that's why I always say, do what you guys got to do like David did and get creative. And he adjusted, he adapted, he learned, and he said, I'm just going to bring a couple 3-man units and have a bunch of different things I could throttle with. And if I choose not to, it's all good because they're solid on their own for 125 on investment. A lot of time people tell me, well, cans just fall over, they die. And it's very much true. I do say a lot of time I use reserves, and it can be true. But a lot of times you can get an over investment into them on something like this 3-man unit in order to kill them, get the enemy out of position, or to even kill a 6-man unit. And then the amount of versatile 3 damage you get is unlike any other Ork unit, especially in Dread Mob, where the volume of these 3 damage that you have in this one unit is unmatched in an Ork Codex. So love the killer cans. Check out that video if you haven't seen it. First, the 5 looters, like I said, they do have a custom Mega Blaster though, because I love that when you're doing Overwatch. Like I said, you pop a lethal, you're going to cover. Now you have the shock attack gun, and you have the mech, and maybe he's getting the lethals as well, and you're going to finish something off. So custom Mega Blast is my preference because when it's those times to shoot, I want that straight up 3 shots. No, I'm not D3 not worth it. If I get 1 shot off of it, that's not enough to get value for my looters and to fish for the button, 6s, critical hits on 6s. So custom Mega Blaster all day. I'll take that risk. If I blow up, that was for Gork and Mork's pleasure. Then we have 3 mech guns. Yes. Ooh, mech guns. Guys, shout out to you, David, because I was running mech guns months ago, and when we didn't have tank busters yet. And so I understand the appeal. Their damage, their strength 9, -3, 3 damage. You could put a character on them to get them to reroll 1s. You can use strats on them so they can reroll the whole hit roll. They can pop big shells for bigger gits. You can even stick that shock attack gun on that 3-man, that mech gun unit, which is totally fine for some matchups, or he might have already be doing that the whole time and not put him with the looters, and he maybe just lets the looters be on their own, or he lets the baby mech go with the 5-man looter unit. But you can stick the shock attack gun on that mech gun unit, do reroll hits, big shells for bigger gits, and now you're getting the value of the full rerolls to hit, +1 to wound on your shock attack guns and all your smasher guns. And then he's ignoring cover. So you're -3 AP ignoring cover, throwing 4 damage shots down the field. So if the enemy doesn't have just an air 4-up invuln, those mech guns are crashing them out, boys. They're picking them up left and right. Elite infantry. If you don't even now need to pop big shells or bigger gits, you're just popping reroll hits, and then the smasher guns are going off. They got blast. So a lot of the time people are just like, that's pretty cool. Some people will take a big mech because you can walk through terrain at that point. So hey, maybe in a different, maybe I'm wrong and he has a big mech on one of these units, or the whole possibility of synergy among these units that have cross pattern capable attachments means it can be matchup dependent. If you're like, I don't need the AP, then, you know, benefit on my mech guns, well, then I'll just put them on my Ludas, so my Ludas can possibly pick something up on an Overwatch turn, or from downrange where it's completely out of range. So like, because they have 48-inch range, right? And so that's what I'm saying. This list to me has just the versatility of, well, I can cross plat some of these unit characters if I want and still have utility about them. So absolutely love this list. I was highly impressed, David, overall, just by the list creativity itself, not just your performance. Your performance just got the attention, you know what I'm saying? And everybody knows that that's what we're here for, is just for the fun of it. So let's look at his 4-1 performance. I think, yeah, and I do have the player pack over here, so I can tell you, where is it over here? Yep, I have the player pack over here, so I can read off at least what the missions were and deployments and such. So let me do that. Shout out the comment. The chats, don't worry, I see you gets. I'll get them to you right after this list, after we go through this. But I clicked him again. So let's look at his matchups, his path to victory. Of course, it's always important. Context is important, guys. When you look at all these just straight general win rates where you don't know what happened, who they played, but then you look at it and you realize, well, they played into no one I regularly have to play into. So I'm having a completely different experience and I'm in a completely different meta. I can't universally just plug and play this, right? Sometimes you want context, and that's why we do it, even if it's a little boring for the gits. But bear with me, because we're out here for the Great Wall. Now, of course, first off, we starting with the Blood Angels Liberator Assault Group. War the Two Snatcher. And then we have Captain with the Rage Fueled Warrior. Another Captain, but with Jump Pack. A Chaplain with Speed of the Primarch. Commander Dante. And then a Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. No Sanguinor. No Sanguinor. No, none. All right. Just make sure you guys heard me. Sometimes I misspeak, you know what I'm saying? Battle Line, Assault Intercessor Squad. I like that in Blood Angels for sure. Yeah, and this was Liberator Assault Group. So those boys are picking up Ork boys for sure with +2 strength. Then we have Intercessors, 1 Impulsor, 2 big bricks of Blade Guard Veteran, which as someone who actually kind of likes Blade Guard, they're in my little baby Imperial Fist army. This is like the coolest attachment they can be in, probably on 40k, but they're really, really good at picking up Orks at this point, because they get up to strength 6 typically, and that could be important. And we'll talk about that when we look real quick at the rest of the list. We have Incursor Squad, followed by 3 3-man units of Sanguinary Guard, 2 5-man units of Jump Pack Veteran Squad, and then 2 Vindicators. Now, of course, we all know these Sanguinary Guard are quite annoying with their easy staging, ability to fly over you, deliver great, reliable damage onto you. But that's why this list is damage 3 all over the table comes into play. You can see that all of these Space Marines are highly susceptible to not only the strength thresholds of our our Dread Mob list, but a unit of Blade Guard veterans would take that whole Blade Guard veterans to kill those 3 kilocans a lot of the time if they're not popping more strat investment, because they're only wounding them on 4s. The weird ablative wounds of the kilocans, and if they whiff or another kilocan's heroics or attempts to help them, well, they're just all 3 damage shots. If the other 3-man unit comes up the field, they can shoot blast into them at 3 damage, then run and punch into them with 3 damage, wounding them on 2s the entire time with sustains. Right, and then it's like, well, oops, that one unit just started to immediately pick up my Blade Guard veteran in double phase activation and possibly my character. So I really like what this list comes with. Now you have to be delicate because it is kind of slow, right? You are susceptible and vulnerable to them with like I said, the kilocans being slow. But once these units get into a fight, there's this, once these in Sanguinary Guard, these Jump Pack Marines. Either they end on an objective, they could be shot by Ludas, or they've made a charge into those same kilocans, which a lot of time will act as kind of like a bait with the flash kits will to get the jump pack units to come out. Now you have to deal with, well, if you do your movement wrong, I can do a reactive move with all these baby grots and get in the way, because you don't really have a volume of firepower on your Blood Angels list. It's just Vindicators or a little random. You don't have a great Overwatch target to clear screens in that kind of way. So you can see where he can take advantage of, I have a lot of units. When my units do make contacts with your really baby soft units, the Space Marines, then you're getting picked up. And so I appreciate that. He has a lot of versatile damage into that Blood Angels list, even though the Blood Angel list can definitely knock his teeth out. that's one of the things that as an orc player that you got to get good and creative with: staging, fundamentals, restricting, and knowing when to give them combats, and then understanding you can pick them up because we got the assets, they got the tricky pants. Then we go into the second game. With speaking of tricky pants, we have some of the new gits on the scene. We have the Thunderwolf. Thunderwolf. Sorry. We have the Space Wolves. So let's go through this real quick. We have, with the new Space Wolves, we have Arjak Rockfist, Logan Grimnar, not on his little sleigh. He's just solo little Terminator boy. Ragnar Blackmane, Lieutenant with combi weapon, Wolfguard Battle Leader. I used to say that all the time when I first played Blood Angels. I'd be like, Wolfguard Battle Leader, and I'd be killing them. Then we have a 10-man unit of Blood Angels, Blood Claws, 5-man unit of Scout Squads, 2 3-man unit of Head Takers, followed by a 6-man unit of Head Takers, a 5-man unit of Wolfguard Terminators with a variety of data sheet, weapons because they're unique. Shout out to Space Wolf Terminators. 1 10-man unit of Wolfen. The Wolfen are absolute value right now. Flat damage 3, anti-monster 3+. The what if could have been. They great movement, inherent 4-up invones. So they're eating good with that. I've appreciated Thunderwolf Cavalry. I appreciate wrecking them because at least they're coming at you. Nothing fancy to them, but real glow up on that data sheet, which would be a problematic for the variety of units you see on the list that we were looking at for our boy David. 3 3-man units of Thunderbolt Cavalry. That's absolute value. I was talking about the killer cans. I feel like they're good value for what they bring, for the ablative wounds, kind of mixture of damage and defense, and the investment from the enemy for their point cost. We'll think of that for the Thunderwolf Cavalry. The invones, the toughness, the ablative. No, they don't. I think they're for even wounds, I guess, at that case. But it is ablative because it's among multiple models for that point cost. So quite absolutely cheap. They're paying like 33 points per model. And then they don't need character buffs and support. They're just good how they are, fighting for objective, winning skirmishes, taking the initiative with the skirmishes. Orcs don't like that, right? Unit of Flash Gitz isn't necessarily going to always do well into these Thunderwolf Cavalry, between how their weapons work and typically what our advantages against other skirmishing units. And then as well as going into the Killicans, you can just ride the 4-up invones and hope that you get lucky, as well as tank one of those Crockett's or so. You're not wounding them as well, but they're great points value and they can eat through your cans too. So you can already see that they have a lot of actual kind of trading, fighting between the Wolf Takers, staging units, heroic intervening units between the Terminators and the big Terminator brick with Arjak Rockfist or probably Grimnar or the Wolfen. And then just a little bit of fire support with 1 Ballistus Dreadnought and 1 Impulsor. The Transforce gets around the field. So this unit actually, because it's Saga of the Beast, and you actually ended up bringing Arjak, he does have the potential to actually, typically, I would say, Space Wolves don't do too great into high toughness stuff like Gorkanauts, for example. But in this case, you can. And typically, whereas Orc players were looking at Space Marines, we're either saying, well, you guys don't have invones or you're low toughness, so my volume is kind of getting through you quite easily. This list isn't necessarily the most or least volume, but what it is it doesn't have a consistent good strength for picking up all of the of the early turn cheap trading pieces of the Space Wolves. But typically with Space Marines, well, if you throw a 5-man unit of whatever out there as a Space Marine, whether as long as it's not like Blade Guard, a 5-man unit Flash Kit's going to tear it up, right? You're going to be really confident. But now Flash Kit's on a Thunderwolf Cavalry unit or Flash Kit's into Killicans, now it's not happening. They can spike invones, you're not wounding them as well. So this would end up being a more difficult trading game. And then, of course, when these guys are exposed, you're shooting at mech guns at them. They could just tank it possibly. So they have a little bit of that oddness value, take initiative value, and then grade up trading pieces values here. So this was a rough one, and I can understand that. So 39-point game there. David ended up losing that round 2, but then he went to round 3, and the rest of the game is quite hot, ready to go. Oh, sorry, and I was too excited. I was too hot, ready to go, because I should have mentioned this earlier. This was day 1, layout 1 or 2, right, /2. We don't know which ones they were. Both of them are recommended for the first day of missions. But his first mission was mission D for GW, Tipping Point, Scorched Earth. Orks typically do appreciate Scorched Earth. Real aggro. Sometimes enemies want to play defensive so they can burn at the end. But Orks like it, not too creative. Tipping Point, pretty solid deployment for the Orks. And then GW layout 1 and 2. Maybe 2 is a little bit more shooty, right? A lot of us like layout 1. Layout 1's very powerful if you're an Ork player for the most part. Then we have round 2, which is when he played into the Space Wolf player. This was mission N as Crucible of Battle deployment and Hidden Supplies as the mission. So this one not as linear. The Space Wolves actually having I would really appreciate if it was something like Search and Destroy, maybe even, but Crucible of Battle can get a little bit weird for deployment between the cans, the Gorks, the mech guns, the trucks. And we don't know, maybe layout 2, layout 1. You would think this is just a melee matchup, but considering he does have a little bit of guns, you do want to respect them just enough, but it's really about a staging potential to come out and smash our vehicles. So I would see that as being not ideal of a mission and a layout for a matchup. Deployment for our layout, our list, our matchups. I kept saying layout. Then we go on to Search and Destroy Linchpin. This is mission J, which is Search and Destroy and Linchpin. Now, this is what we like to see, which is what we're doing with this third game that we're going into, which is his game 3, where he goes into the Meta Bullies Death Guard. I think I went back to my boy's list. Shout out to my boy. Right here. So he went to this. His third game was actually into Death Guard. And like I said, that was, which we appreciate, Search and Destroy, Linchpin, and then Mission J. Which is actually important because these guys like to run away and sticky their home objective. And that's one thing about Dread Mob that I wish we had sometimes that I like as attack pieces. Like, oh man, I wish I could get kind of your backfield because then you can full commit everything to me. But it's all good. Let's look at this Death Guard meta list real quick. Let me see. Let's look at something up. Shout out to the chat. We'll get to you guys in a second. We'll get to you guys after this. Don't worry. You guys, I'm excited. You guys are awesome. By the way, everybody's been doing great. So we have Biologist Putrefier. Which one was this? Virulent Vectorum. Does that mean toilet or something in Death Guard? So we have Biologist Putrefier, Demon Prince of Nurgle, Revoltingly Regeneration. Oh, that's the guy who heals himself, or if you don't kill him or something. Forgot that one. Lord of Contagion with the Furnace Plague. Another Lord of Contagion. A Lord of Virulence, followed by a Malignant Plague Caster. One big brick of Plague Marines, which it's one Rhino, pretty much a stable piece. Stick the Malignant Plague Caster on there. They could stick a Biologist Putrefier on there as well. Then they got all these special weapons. Jump out of the Rhino. The Rhino gives them buffs, so they're even better at wounding, I believe. I think reroll wounds, something like that. I got to check again. But we continue. 2 Predator Destructors with autocannons, which was kind of a more interesting, not as common tech piece. 1 Chaos Spawn, which I also thought was kind of interesting, not seen too often. 2 units of Death Shroud Terminators, followed by 3 floated bloat drones with heavy blight launchers, and 2 10-man units of Poxwalkers. So I haven't ran the same list, like I said, as our boy here, David. But I have run Dread Mob with cans and Titanic and models into Death Guard, and it feels pretty good, especially when you're running all these damage 3 into these gits. Death Guard doesn't necessarily do good into killing Gorkanaut, for example. Right, so he can tack enough offensive buffs with his Death Shroud Terminators, but it is going to be the focus of his army on that turn. A lot of the time, the Death Guard players will be thinking, "I'm going to take -1 to hit or ballistic seal if I get in contagion range." Well, that's where you, as an Ork player, are happy to have so many Gretchen on this list and trucks. Because me personally as well, which we always talk about, if you're fighting Death Guard, meet them at that midline and push them off of it, because they're going to be dropping in 6 inches, doing their shenanigans. But also, you want to start touching their drones. You want to start touching stuff that doesn't fall back, shoot and do anything. And you also want to get in the way of the Poxwalkers a lot of the time, because you don't want them getting up close and personal to what they want to be in contagion range of. So that's where I really had value in having so many boys, right? I mean, Grots, I've taken just units of Grots and just straight up advance them forward. The enemy wants to move forward somewhere, then I just reactive move my Grots, or of course I let them know. But I'm like, I react to move, and I'm going to just stop the next move at the unit that's trying to move, for example, right? Or sometimes people just don't even want to invest in killing all the grots, and some leftover grots remain, and you go charge the bloat drone on your, or you come out on the bloat with some more of your grots on the wall, and you run into a bloat drone. You know, they only got 3 punches. They can't do nothing to you. So it's not an easy matchup by any means, but it's not a hopeless matchup is one I'm trying to poke out here. There's definitely a lot of play, and the Killicans played a big role in picking up something like Death Shroud, picking up 10-man units of Plague Marines. That's where the mech guns would be really nasty as well. Tank busters for even possibly popping these Predator Destructors, which typically we don't have a lot of opportunity to do. But it's all, and typically we're like, well, mission 3 is Ork's favorite, but if you're playing Dreadmon, you don't have infiltrators, which we've spoken about in the past here, that if you're playing Dreadmob, you're kind of slow and you're kind of deployed in a little corner, right? And you're going to do some reserves, probably a can or something, sometimes a Gorkanaut though. And in that case, you know, no infiltration, no jumping abilities or anything like that. You're just going to have to kind of just make your way out there and hope you go first, take position. Was a 61-point game right here. I'm clicking my tab. For, like I said, linchpin, which typically, you know, linchpin can go either way because you're fighting for, you're only getting objectives in the middle for your score. And a lot of the time, these guys are going to be able to push each other off it and delete it, which might affect the primary a lot of the, well, does affect the primary a lot of the time, even though Orks like to play that kind of game. And this one, well, they can knock you off it and with their killing power, but a lot of times they're not going to also be able to keep it as well. And as long as you keep that same idea of I'm pushing you further back and I'm choosing the ground we fight this initiative on, then they're not scoring their secondaries. And that's pretty good. And you do kill them just enough with Dreadmob, from what I've seen, that because you're not relying on just punching them, and you have a bunch of damage 3 and high strength for their odd toughness values, like on their Death Shroud and their little Plague Boys. Everything is a viable target across the field for that army matchup, right? Everything is susceptible to getting popped, like the Predators, the bloat drones from your tank busters, whatever. Anything, he has to be scared. All has damage 3, even a dumb Death Dread. Though I did take a 4-arm Death Dread into the Terminator unit, and he killed absolutely no one and almost got clapped back by just 2. So you let me know, David, how'd your Death Dread do? If you're out there somewhere, you get chat sometime with us, community, that'd be pretty great. Because, you know, I took my Death Dread out, and my Death Dread did not do well into the Death Guard matchup. He totally whiffed. He was like, just swinging in the air. But great job, 61-point win to the Meta Bullies. And we move on to the 4th matchup, which is, I'm having too much fun with this. You guys, should I hurry up? Oh, we're getting late on this, where I'll move up. Where he's going into the Chaos Knights. Let's go. He had another meta bully here. Not, you know, the typical 6 giants, but still quite potent list. We have 2 Knight Abominants, one with the blade of Celebratory, and then 1 Knight Despoiler, followed by 2 Rampagers and a little baby Knight War Dog Executioner by 3 3-man units of Nurglings. Now, what I would say though, right? Hopefully, I think how this went is either A, the Nurgling guy didn't put them to tar pit, the parking lot, as we like to talk about a lot of the time, right? Where people will sometimes take their Nurgling units, throw them up to hold the enemy back as they can take the initiative of them. I think they're more to reject other people's infiltrators. So in that case, I'm not sure if he would throw them forward, but if he went first and he was able to throw these forward, he could hypothetically move, block, and tar pit something like a Dread Mob list. So keep that in mind as we go through it. Now, this was day 2 as we did this one. So this was layout 4 and 6. Not sure what he played on, like which layout. I just know that 6, it is kind of a hybrid. There are some decent staging places to fight. Like sometimes the middle's all right. You know, near your natural expansion is kind of decent to jump out of, but there's also a lot of open ground and cross firing angles. So keep that in mind. But the mission was mission O, followed by with Crucible of Battle and Terraform. And remember, it's new Terraform, right? New Terraform. So you can terraform, and then someone can remove the terraform, make it their own terraform. So I haven't played into Chaos Knights in their new meta. Yeah, I did play into Imperial Knights a few times. That was rough, of course. But I do understand the pressure that these guys bring off, the speed, the -1 damage. You know, they do make you take battle shocks. They crump really hard. But Dread Mob is that one Ork detachment that can look at Knights and say, I can kill you outside of the wall. I can kill you outside of the wall, and when you close the distance on me, now I get 2 phases of activations. With each phase, I can kill you outside of the wall. Right. And so the knight does have fights first, but you have just enough assets and just enough damage. There's one knight that has fights first, but you have just enough damage and multi-phase damage and assets to still win the mission on this. I don't see it out of the question that he could kill 2 big knights a turn, maybe 1 big knight early, and then carry on. Now, would take a little bit of luck, but keep in mind, your tank busters aren't regular tank busters, maybe like Tactical Brigade, for example, where you're just going off the data sheet. You have the ability to get sustain on these tank buster shots, throttle damage to the roof. Your Smet guns could, like I said, re-roll hits, big shells for bigger gits, damage 4, just chucking them down the field, right? And then you have the variety of your cans popping lethal, shooting rockets periodically. You have the Gorkanaut who can run in and finish off. Or me, myself, I've had games definitely where my Gorkanaut will pop lethal, be standing directly in front of the knight, and I won't be getting any cover, and pop lethal, just shoot into him, boom, 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 puts just ablative, just put some more wounds on him, damage him down just from that, and then charge in, right? So there's so much just possibility. And of course, never forget the Death Dread. The Death Dread. Now, the Death Dread is strength 12, right? Little baby Death Dread, get in there. He might pop off too. Not sure exactly how this game went, but there's a bunch of places there can be damage spiking potential. The custom Mega Blasts, D6 damage across the field everywhere, just sprinkled throughout the list as well, followed by a bunch of OC bombs who can actually win on OC. And if he tries to sticky it with their typically, well, I have 5 sticky OC on the subjective. Like, yeah, I got 2 little idiot grots over there. Snotty, Booger, and Butt Wrinkle. Go stand on that objective. Boom, you're set. So typically, knights are pretty proud of their 5 OC. Sticky, but when you're playing against orcs, you can't be that proud of that because we got stuff everywhere. So that was an absolute great job by our boy. Pull that one out because he got a big old fat. Oh my god, over here, big old fat 95-point win. My boy was terraforming up that field. You know what I'm saying? Love it. Absolutely great job there. Then we move on to his 5th game. So we can see here, right? When I said context matters, gets right, because some people might say, I see you at Arcane Asylum, that might say, well, Dread Mob ain't that good. Just once in a while, and I can see why you're saying that. I'm not necessarily against you, but as we unfold and we look at the context and the results, you're getting consistent week out since the nerfs, and you've seen that he's gone into some of the meta bullies and he's been able to pull it out. You know what I'm saying? So come on, guys, let's give Dread Mob some love, give us some credit. He does have the tools. We've been saying that on the channel. I don't give myself a lot of credit a lot of the time for anything because I don't deserve much. But in this case, in this community, we're on the Dread Mob mindset. We know what's up, right? And so shout out to you, David, because you definitely know what's up too. Because I'm digging this. I'm excited, and I'm glad another orc appearance was made with Dread Mob. And last but not least, we have the Salamanders. So shout out to you right now for winning this game, because I went into Salamanders with a bunch of killer cans, and those flamers tore me up, and those Malthus tore me up. So let's look at this list real quick. We have Adrex Agatone. Shout out to that guy. I actually kind of like him. We have Captain and Gravishammer. Remember, he helps Malthus. A lot of time you'll throw him in a Blade Guard unit. Oh, no, Vulcan will go in there. Okay. We'll see what happens. But Agrax allows them to shoot better, I think, with their Malthus. We have a Captain and Gravishammer. I think this is one of the most slept on Space Marine units, all the 40k. But because a lot of time you see results from Ultramarines, they essentially have an epic hero version of this called Marnius Fatgar, right? So he's a lot of the time going to be their version of the Gravishammer guy. Then we have Lieutenant with Champion of Humanity, Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, and then Vulcan. He's dead. I had to do that for my Mander boys. So one Aggressor Squad. I'm pretty sure that's where the Gravis boy went with the Flame Gauntlets. Pretty sure they can max out those volume of shots, reroll wounds. It can get obnoxious. And then on Overwatch, absolutely terrifying if you're playing a basic War Horde list or just trying to run right at them. Then we have the Blade Guard unit. This a lot of the time will be given by Vulcan Heastan. I believe he gives them like +1 strength to wound or something like that. I'd have to look at it again because I remembered and then I forgot from the other day. I feel like looking it up because I actually like this. And this was round 5. And I wonder if he'll get like a new model, because if you guys didn't know, I do have a weird little Imperial Fist army. Shout out to Volrax or whatever that guy. He's awesome. But yeah, I have a blad, and they got my new Lysander coming out. So I wonder if Vulcan will get a new one. But goodness, look at that boy. He is a little soft body. He has, yes, he can. In your you have to select to shoot in the face. Sorry. So when he selects a unit within 24 inches, and he makes attack with either Tauren or Melta, you can re-roll the wound. And then he can do some OC stuff. And he has this cool little spear hitting on 2, strength 6, -2 damage. Okay, so yeah, he likes to go in kind of blade guard units, and then he can select someone to re-roll their flamer wounds or Melta wounds. That's what I remember. It's been a while. 2 Eradicators, which are also getting buffed from being in Salamanders. Again, another strength bit. Did he putting up another threshold? 1 Gladiator Lancer, 2 Infernus Marines, Infiltrators, a Land Raider Redeemer, and then a Scout Squad with a Storm Speeder Hammer Strike. And then the mission for this one, before I forget, because I've been too excited recently. Like I said, it's either 4 or 6 on the layout. The mission is A, good old mission A, good old reliable, with a take and hold on tipping point deployment. So as for this list, though it is quite potent and its killing potential per unit, these guys were not durable. The Space Marine player will heavily rely on this Land Raider to deliver, whether it's I believe they put, is it the aggressors in there or just some eradicators? I don't remember exactly what went in there that can go in there, but it's really just for bringing up its own flamer a lot of the time. And then it just kind of hoping you commit assets to it, and then it can come out with all that stuff and its melters and its flamers, because it wants to meet you in that mid-table. But they're really not that durable. You have a lot of stuff that's really good at killing them. And they had a Storm Speeder, which I think allows you to reroll a wound or ignore cover or something. But yeah, I do appreciate, and he has, and how could I forget? Yeah, there's a 10-man unit of Infernus Marines. Let's go. Which, like I said, when I played it, I'm being straightforward, transparent here. I didn't play with them against them before. I had 18 kilocans that day. I was like, let's get it. Layout 8 and the old one. And them flamers and meltas messed me up. He was just picking up 1 can per melta. It was nasty. But I appreciate, but what I did remember is when anything was making contact with them, when I was, mitigating my damage and allowing stuff to survive and actually respond, I was picking stuff up left and right. Your ability, like I said, with that mech gun, where it's like, well, at that Land Raider, ignore cover, -3, shock attack gun, or tank buster, same thing. Maybe your tank buster unit adopted that shock attack gun and said, hey, I need you for this matchup, boy. Let me take out that Land Raider. Right? Options. That's what I like about this list. And then a bunch of aggressors, terrified, petrified, just like the Eradicators would be, or the Infernus Marines, or the Blade Guard veterans. All the damage 3 and the ability of all of our units on this list essentially to wound them on 2s and 3s that are trying to get into fights with them is terrifying, right? So I love it. I think that he just was an asset thing. Of course, he could lose stuff, maybe the death threat a little early, but once stuff starts popping out and they get exposed, they are not durable, and they're going to have to expose some Space Marine bodies to start clearing Gretchen, because a lot of time I was just hoofing some Gretchen up the field a little bit to try to start luring their stuff out. Boys getting in fights, flash gets, and then boom, before you know it, their squishy bodies are on the open, and you're just shooting rockets down the field and charging them and picking them up and crumping. Whoa, let's go. So I appreciated that. So shout out to David. He pulled that one out with a 88-point victory. Let me show it real quick. Too excited. 88-point win right there, my boy. So shout out to David Cottam. Let's go over his Dread Mob list one more time because I've been too excited. We have 3 damage gits, followed by the characters being 2 big mechs, shock attack gun, baby mechas, the warlord, 10 boys, 4 minimum size units of Gretchen, followed by 2 trucks, 1 Death Dread with 4 claws, 2 5-man flash kits, 1 Gorkanaut, 3 kilocans, 2 3-man units kilocans, 5-man unit of Lutas with the custom Mega Blaster, 3-man mech gun unit, Storm Boys, and Tank Busters. If you're curious how to run this, how to run these units, my more in-depth understanding of these units and the synergy and how I would use them and strategy, maybe even deployment, we have a whole Dread Mob playlist because I'm a Dread Mob fan. I ran it a bunch, And so I gave it first priority, and I'm making my playlist for it. So make sure you guys check that out while I check out what did the poll say. So let me get this stuff on my way. Back with my big head. So let me look at what you guys actually said for the poll results. Okay, pretty solid. A third of you guys wanted the War Horde, but it looks like the Bully Boys is where it's at. So let's look at the Bully Boys list. You get it? Right now you have to look at the side of my head, though, while I move things. So shout out to you guys. Now we can look at the comments in the meantime because we're transitioning over to the new list. So let me hit the comments before we go into this. We'll do this new list a little bit faster because I was really excited about that Bully Boys list. So unique. And who's also unique is our boy Andrew Stone. Thank you for the super support. As always, you get very generous and grateful of you for your $20 super chat and your 20 WAAAGHday gifted memberships. Whoa, let's go. And speaking of perfect timing, this kid, I appreciate you. And you guys, if you receive one of these right now, when this is over or whatever, go check out the after action report. If you got one of these memberships, let me know what you think. If it sucked, you know, if whatever, I'm going to improve them. I'm going to bring them to the general public as well anyways. So we started those after action reports, kind of like a battle report, but it's an after action report because I have pictures and stuff. But exciting stuff. Thank you very much, Andrew. Boss, keep us boys stoked and high. You are truly war leader. War, let's go. Yeah, we the Waaagh Chief out here, you boys, for the great Waaagh, but more in spirit like an avatar, right? Because a lot of you gets are very good, proficient war bosses, and we're all here, you know, like any Waaagh energy. We're feeding off each other's Waaagh energy, right? Guys in the community get me excited. Guys give me ideas. We talk about stuff in the Discord, Facebook, DMs, whatever it is. Members chat, all that stuff. We get stuck in. So thank you very much, Andrew Stone. I appreciate that generosity and your comments. And then we have another channel member with Arcane Asylum saying he's here for the Dread Mob, but he thinks it's a flash in the pan, not consistent, but big wall for those who spike. Speaking of, not consistent in what way? As in, you don't think you can get consistent results to go 5-0? I can kind of agree with that because, you know, we can blow yourself up and it's still Dread Mob, a little random. And it's Ork shooting, so that's definitely unreliable. But Dread Mob has been performing since the nerfs. It really has. We've showed it for the last couple of weeks, so I'm excited, and I know you are too, Arcane. So that's what's up. Shout out to Tiger Mount. Shout out to brother Sarah, back from vacation. Night's too strong. Yeah. Shout out to you guys who got them. Murder Mouth. Yeah. 3 damage max, and you get. Have you talked about screening with Grotz? How do you do it effectively? Yeah, I have a video. I'm thinking on top 3 orc units using wrong. And stuff like that. I believe that's videos in there where I was showing the reactive moves and assisting them for heroics and such. I think the transport video I showed that too. There's a button where I had actual pictures and little arrows everywhere like that. So yeah, I appreciate that. I've talked about it. And if I didn't do good enough, leave a comment if you can't find it, and I maybe have to do a specific video about that. But yeah, Grotz are pretty awesome, especially in Dread Mob, where you can reactive to move forward into filling gaps and holes. And if the after action report, I do show that where it comes into play. So then, but good question. Then we have Thomas. Whoa, and he says, Christian says, like an avatar of corn. No, not like an avatar of corn, you freak. Of Gork and Mork. Okay. Don't get it twisted with your little crackhead boy out here, okay? But shout out to you, Christian. Then let's go into the Bullet Boys list, like I was doing. So chat's still going. Don't worry. I'm just making sure I pull up the slide. But you're right about Grotz being OP. Don't say that GW's gonna get him nerfed. Get him, chat. Get him. No, I was kidding. Let me close some of these. Let's see. Yeah, because I had a bunch of, you know how it be, guys. I have a bunch of tabs open, and I don't want to over. Man, sometimes I'd be over clicking and then I get rid of all the tabs and then I start completely over again. And it's disappointing. So let me see. Okay. Actually, I'm gonna keep this one over here so I can look at it. Dude, I was actually really excited about this one because you hardly ever see Bully Boys do anything. So even seeing them in the teams event, like there's no, just because it's teams doesn't mean it isn't legitimate. And I was very, very excited for it. So I'm excited you guys want to talk about it. For you guys who voted, so thanks for voting. Like I said, I adhere to what you say, but I did have the War Horde one there, and don't be surprised if the War Horde one's up for next week's vote. So if you guys are still excited about War Horde, if you want to see what's working and such, that could be on the next the next stream and such. So no loss on that. Even if your vote didn't win, don't be discouraged because it's gonna happen again. Not that you're not gonna win, just that you can get the vote again. I mean, on that list. So let's get it over here. Let's get it. So pulling it through right now, you get. Sorry, my little fat head. You guys haven't had to look at this for a long time. All right, now let's move on. So we have Battle at the Bridge, 5-man team event, 50 players at this event. And yes, the wall has come out on top. You get out of nowhere. The Bully Boys with Tyler Amble. I don't want to mess up your name any more than I have, but Tyler pulling off four perfect scores out of 5 games. Outrageous. So let's take a look at his actual list because I thought it was very much meat and potatoes, which, sometimes you have to be reminded of the lessons you teach sometimes yourself as an Ork player. And Tyler brought back some of the core lessons that we push on the channel. So shout out to you, Git. Let's take a look at his list. Like I said, so like I mentioned, Bullet Boys already, with those being 2 units of beast bosses. Then we have Gazgul Thraka up here with the War Chief. Yeah, you know what? Gazgul is one of the most contentious pieces in Bully Boys list, whether you run him, you don't, what you got to say about him, or War Horde. So I'm glad he brought him, but you're going to see why. 3 units of war bosses, because you need the war boss keyword to do anything in this detachment. Followed by 2 10-man units of snaggas for them beast bosses. Really good for killing something either outside the wall or during the wall, but really getting ultimate value on a variety of targets, whether it's a small haul, finishing off a big monster, volume of punches into a variety of mobs, or mirror matchup type units, or elite infantry. So much cool stuff you can get off your beast boss. OC, which is what this detachment generally really lacks. So 10-man units are awesome. I've been using 1, slowly moving over to 2, but what also our Git has brought back to us that we haven't seen a little hot minute since the nerfs are the meat and potatoes, the backbone of the Ork Codex typically, and our identity as a faction is the 20-man mob. Whoa, yes, we brought back the 20-man mob units, kept it cheap, didn't bring the pain boys because he said, I just got the pain from the wall. So I like that. He's just riding off the 5-up invul and the ability to advance and charge multiple times. 1 truck, followed by 2 units of Gretchen, 2 kill rigs. Yes, he paid for the kill rigs for those beast snagga boys. Followed by 1 Mega Knob, 3-man unit for Gaz, 1 Power Claw, 1 Kill Saw, because you pick which weapon you're using based off the target of that moment. Then a big old brick of knobs. That's where the 3rd war boss goes for that unit. Knobs are one of those units that I'm like, ugh. The 10-man, not sure. But in this list, absolutely makes sense because you have very, very limited units you're going to be spending the actual reroll hit stratagem on. It's either going to be Gas or this 10-man unit knobs, because no one else can do it, which means on the wall, the 2 walls that you have chance of, these knobs can be ganging up on something in the mid table alongside Gaz or barely within Makari's range, and you're re-rolling the hit. That way you can get a lot more lethals to kind of make up for the fact that you don't really wound big monsters too well, or vehicles that there may be. Or if you're going to elite infantry, you're just lethal wounding them because we don't have sustain. And that's our really big issue in this detachment is we don't have a really good way of throttling offensive output. And that's the point of Gaz. 12-inch aura coming in twice. Well, Makari. The 12-inch aura coming in twice is the real purpose of Gaz a lot of the time on this list. And as you can see, our Git has 5 units that greatly benefit from Makari's aura, right? And then we have a 5-man new Storm Boys, right? So he's knobs. He has 2 units of snaggas and then 2 units of boys. Boys getting them lethal, they can actually kill something. They can actually kill something now. The snaggas, if it's an early game aura, if it's maybe 1-1, 1 beast boss unit goes forward, 1 big mob boy unit goes forward, they both get Makari's aura ability, right? Either they can fish back or Gaz is finally exposing himself, whatever it is. But the boys need it to punch up. The snaggas can use it to re-roll lethals for the actual snagga boys themselves, or like we said, the knobs can do it. So he actually has access to re-rolls to try to get access value out of Makari's banner. But then where he doesn't have re-rolls, he has a ton of volume of punches of these boys. And when you get to that many punches, you know, your math hammer kind of goes off the window because the vast variety of possibilities and that many dice being rolled can fluctuate to, oops, I accidentally rolled 25 lethals. You can just take that. It'll take saves real quick, buddy. Right? That's totally true and valid as a way to go for this list. So love it. He brought the pressure of the beast of the bully boys. Ton of actual OC on this list, but he has killing potential, whether it's from gas or the units that are simply within range of gas to play the mid-table. So let's take a look at his actual path to victory and what his team put him into that he had such a great leverage over. So maybe it's something that none of us really considered was Bully Boys as the team event list. Scratch your head, right? And, you know, you don't hear about that, whether it's from me or other Ork, you know, channels, whatever it is, people who talk about Orks periodically don't really hear about Bully Boys being the detachment, right? So yeah. Can you guys see what's on the screen right now? Let me know in chat if you guys can see what's on screen, because make sure make sure you guys can actually tell me you guys can see what's on screen. All right. It's not just my head, right? All right. Make sure. Yeah, okay, we got it up. Just wanted to double check, guys. I got too excited. Now, let's take a look at this boy's crazy scoring results here. Let's go. So excited. Rub my hands together. I'm looking like a desk all right here, about to be looting. All right, thank you, chat. Shout out to you, Gitz. I see you responding. What's up, Paint? So first matchup, the Blood Angels Liberator Assault Group. Here we have Chief Mephiston, the Vampire Queen himself, a king. Then we Judiciar, Lamartis, Sanguinor Priest, and the Sanguinor. So bunch of epic characters, and then some iconic like Judiciar and Sanguinary Priest for the Feel No Pain, for the Judiciar ability. Pretty cool. I like that little thing. There's a small period when I owned Blood Angels, guys. Not my cup of tea, but you know, made me familiar with what they actually like about them. 2 units of 5 assault intercessors with jump packs. They're building Liberator Assault, right? I already said that. Yeah. Okay. Just kind of default to assume that. He said Vampire Queen. What's up, Wicked Joe? Then we have 1 unit of Blade Guard veterans, big old brick of them. 1 Death Company. What's up, Death Company Dreadnought? We ain't see you little box dreads in a hot minute. Followed by a Death Company Marine with jump pack, a big brick of 10 of those gits. An Infiltrator Squad, 3x3 Sanguinary Guard. Okay, Stern Guard. Stern Guard right here, they get to re-roll wounds into oath targets. So it could be using the devastating wound weapons. What was he actually using here? Or were they fighting? Close combat, bolt rifle, combi weapon. Okay, so they're going for dev wounds. Then we have Vanguard veteran, jump pass squad, just a nice 5-man unit. So yeah, this unit right here is because, from what I understand, they use their oath to shoot and then do devastating wounds into infantry on 4+, and they'll reroll into their oath target, from what I understand. So that's their shooting platform for this list, because they don't have many other ones, typically a tank or something like that. So no shooting here, which Bully Boys love to see that. I'm gonna throw 40 boy bodies at you on the wall with all that OC, maybe snag of bodies, followed by noms, gas, and everything's lethal in that mid table when you go to bang it out, right? Oops, I shouldn't have gone back to that list. So our boys list here, right, is just so able to take on one of these units of Sanguinary Guard, hitting them, picking up maybe half of the mob of boys or even more. The boys clap back with just the Power Claw knob and the Warboss, for example. There are the chances that you have to be careful with getting precision out with your Warbosses, of course. So keep that in mind. If you don't want that to happen, just make sure your Warboss is not able to be physically seen by another enemy model. So have them like in a terrain piece in these kind of matchups, maybe. But you need the aggression. So a lot of time we're just gonna bang it out and fight it out with them. But we have 2 killer rigs also. So the kill rigs are giving you the war towers. You can get some nasty las cannon shots on any of these units. Maybe it's your fun Overwatch, because there's not a lot of strats you're really gonna be looking for here. I found myself throwing grenades. I found myself wanting to do the Bully Boys equivalent of a tank shock with that knobs unit. The kill rigs can do a similar thing, and the kill rigs are giving another strength to the snaggas or the boys, whether it be on the wall or not, and they're possibly giving them a lethal. So I'm wounding even better, possibly getting strength 7, getting my boys to strength 5 in these marine matchups. So the wound output is even greater of the lethal and them, and then they're hitting on and wounding them on 3s, and they're getting lethal, and then they're getting +1 to hit from the Warboss. And you take the initiative and you actually have the 5 of invuln for the durability, then dice just have to be dice, and you have to, they have to roll it out. Can I actually get enough successful wounds to pick up this 20-man unit? Even if the 3 boys and Nob and a Warboss is alive, there's a good chance I'm clapping your Space Marine unit back on that wall and within Gaz's lethal ability. Not to mention Gaz himself getting up in there, right? So Mephiston, I gotta feel no pain. You ain't got nothing on me. Gaz gonna run there, rip his head off. So 20-point win there. Absolutely love it. Oh, and actually, I think I have the list over here. Did I do it? Yes, I did. Hold on. Let me bring it back here, you boys, to my head. Let me pull up something because I think I have the mission pack, but it was all. I don't want you guys to have to watch everything I'm clicking. There we go. I got too excited and I think I canceled it out, but I actually do have access to the missions because, like I said, this was pretty cool how they had GW and WTC with this one. So round 1, that Blood Angels list, it was supply drop, sweeping engagement. For the GW, it was either layout 3 or layout 5, and then for WTC, it was sweeping engagement 1 and 3. For any of those guys who are worried or wonder, because I know there's plenty of people that play on WTC here in our community and in this stream right now. So I thought that was pretty fun. We got to see something different. So you guys want to check it out? Of course, you can check it out on the BCP as well. Now we move on to his second matchup, and I'll pull up what the mission was as well. But as for his second game, it was round 2. It was either Purge the Foe, Hammer and Anvil, either GW layout 1 and 7, or it was WTC Hammer and Anvil 3 and 6. So we got a Purge the Foe, and we have Purge the Foe against Chaos Knights. Oh shoot! Right? Typically, this is the Ork Nightmare matchup where we're like, we don't want to deal with this. I don't want to do what? But this game must have known something that all of us didn't know. Let me make sure I get rid of some of these lists so my tabs don't get crazy on us, right? Exciting chat right now. Very exciting. But yeah, our Git was like, well, I know about this because remember, this is teams. So he wanted as a defender and he got picked by the Knights player. Who knows? But let's see. He goes, Battle Shock for everyone. Sure. We ain't scared, boy. We ain't never scared. So then we have the Chaos Knights with their Traitoris Lance. So we have a Crastus Knight Lancer with Nightmare's Master. We have a Knight Abominant and a Knight Rampager. Okay, so he didn't go so skewed into all the big knights. Cool. 2 units of Brigands, followed by an Executioner, and then 3 Carnivores, followed by 1 big old Brigand Nurglings. This is where the fact that this list, oh gosh, I keep showing the wrong list because I'm used to having that one pre-made, but these are a vote lists, right, boys? The fact that this list is all about just banging it out in the mid-table as an Ork player between 2 big bricks of 20 boys. You have the Snaggas to play flanks, to skirmish and beat the crap out of one of those little war dogs if he's actually within Gaz's range, because now the Snagga boys are fishing for lethal as well, and you got the dev wound potential, or that base boss is coming in helping finishing off a larger knight, for example. Actual good OC. The boys themselves are going to be punching up. Like I mentioned earlier about the kill rigs can actually shoot a little bit. Kill rigs might take some of the firepower off Gaz and put it on them. Because we don't really like when Gaz actually targeted with the melta shots. Some people might make the mistake of going into the kill rigs, but if they do just simply go into kill rigs, well, kill rigs will get into a fight with the baby knight all day. A lot of the time they can actually kind of stand in front of them for a little bit, maybe even help finish them off, getting the boys to the next strength threshold. So if they did get into contact with one of those big knights, they're wounding them on 5s instead of 6s. And the Warboss and the Nob in the unit are doing better because the Warboss is going to get up to strength 12 on the wall, and then the Nob in that unit is going to up to 11, and then you also still have lethal on all those punches as well. So even though they have, well, I'm gonna reduce damage by 1. Well, this is death by a billion Ork boy chopper cuts to help bring these guys down. But you're also just straight up winning the mission. I don't think he necessarily had to kill all the knights. He just had to kill enough that you're not able to stop all of them, right? And yeah, it's heavily more towards big. Yeah, it's pretty balanced, which you don't see a lot of time. A lot of time those knights lists want to be just full aggro melee and not really care about shooting too much. So shout out to him. Big old fat 20-point win on that. So he used one of our least popular, least winning detachments to go into one of the meta boys. Keep that in mind, guys. That's why we talk about generalities here, but we talk about also you can be an exception as an Ork player if you stick to your guns, if you identify with something yourself. So don't listen to, not that I'm saying that they're not right a lot of the time too, other Ork channels or players, but don't listen to the Debbie Downers, the people who are just completely dismissing detachment styles or play styles because it's not suitable for them. That's why me personally, though I may not be world class, I am or world class familiarity with the Ork Codex in and out because I'll play every detachment, every unit, so I can have, you know, personal, actual, real life understanding experience of what we're trying to do here. And that's why I promote you guys, because I go, I learn from you gits all the time. So that's what we're doing here. We're learning as gits with our time. So let's go into this third game where he actually didn't score 20 for the first time. And he went to the Blood Angels. Now, shout out to this git, by the way. If our boy here, what the heck? I went too far forward. If our boy Tyler, you know, ever wants to talk to Discord, let us know what's going on, or comes across this video, let people know what's up, because we're really excited about how this list was going. Great kudos to you, because what missions were you playing? Because WTC GW, you know, a little context would make it more interesting. As for this matchup, Angelic Inheritors. So we have captains with jump pack, 2 of them, Commander Dante, Lieutenant with combi, and then a Sanguinor jumping from space into people. We have an Intercessor squad, 2 Ball Predators, an Inceptor brick with plasma, another Inceptor with bolters, Infiltrators, 3x3 Sanguinary Guard, and then 2 Vindicators. Now, typically, something like a Vindicator, so a vehicle platform for shooting, blah, 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 with blast, you'd be like, all day my boys are getting stuck in there and holding it in place. Right? I might not be able to kill it, but I'm going to hold it in place. The one thing about a Vindicator is it shoots in combat with blast. Goodness, I've had a Vindicator pick up 8 Ork boys on the wall before. It can get out of hand. So you do have to be careful, right? With this list, a lot of the time, you know, between the Ball Predators and the Vindicators, now this Blood Angel has enough volume in both phases of the game to crash through these 20-man unit of Ork boys. I think he actually had to kind of give more assets in this game. This is probably one of the first lists that was able to chew reliably through 20-man units of mobs of boys, and then have to take the impact from Gaz and the follow-up mobs of boys and the snaggers. But a 16-point win in teams is still excellent. Still absolutely excellent. So love what he was doing here. This is really much about put a little assets forward. We start getting into an exchange. Straight up wall. Let's get into you. You crash into my wall units. I actually have the invuln. I might actually survive a little bit, but my units also have OC, so I still might be able to score primary, keep the objectives, having get just punched off them and weakened, and then I have to do my follow-up wall with my 10 knobs and gas and my following units that are at full potential still. And then we get it kicked off and we can start cooking. Or possibly he just puts both 20-man units forward, causes the person to overinvest, and then he crashes into him with his proper wall. This is Tyler's baby right here, right? We've seen similar, right? We've seen pain walls where people bring mobs of boys and pain boys, and we've seen a gas. But we're looking at this current meta, what he's doing. This is true to him. So shout out to you, Tyler. We see 2 creative gets this weekend. See, guys, when things get hard, don't get soft. As an Ork boy, no offense to people who are upset. You have every right to be upset. Justified. A lot of stuff's going down. Very discouraging. But as for winning games, you don't have to be worried about can you still win games as an Ork player, right? It really does come down to us as piloting. Just you don't want to listen to me, listen to our boy, our favorite guys that don't love Orks at Art of War, right? They're really honest, but besides Michael Mann, love that git. Michael Mann, Nick, you guys are awesome. That, they acknowledge that Orks are one of the highest skill ceilings, highest pilot difficulty factions to play. So if you're on the learning curve, if you're new, don't get discouraged. Our fancy bits and gits were never what we're winning as games. The fundamentals, and having your own identity as an Ork player is fantastic. And Tyler and both the gitz that we cover this weekend, today, we're really about that life. So doing to his fourth game. His fourth game is the Salamanders. We got salamanders again. What? I'm surprised. We go from never seeing salamanders to seeing some salamanders. So this is his round. I got too excited with all my clicks. That was Blood Angels. So this is his fourth game. So his fourth game, we got, this was Take and Hold. For GW, it was Search and Destroy, layout 2-3. And then for WTC, it was it says Search and Hold 4 and 3. Cool. I haven't played in WTC in like a year or two, so sorry guys. But yeah, good old fashioned Take and Hold, and you had late 2-3. Wonder if you played on that one. I'm not sure, but was I looking at his fire? We get the fire boys. So we have Adrax Agatone. I kind of feel like looking at what Adrax Agatone does again, because we've seen these kids twice, and this today, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan because I like green, right? So shout out to them. Let's see. I'll see what his actual data sheet does. This makes a melee attack. You can re-roll the wound roll. All right, cool. And when he's under objective, objective. Okay, he has objective OC as well. Okay, kind of interesting for mobs of boys. Bet their OC in half. So we have Adrax with the nice paint. Then we have Apothecary Biologist, Lieutenant, followed by Vulcan Heaston, which he allows you to, he picks a unit, they reroll wounds with their Melta or Flamers. An Intercessor, followed by 1 3-man unit of Aggressors with Flamers, 1 Ballistas Dreadnought, which I think Ballistas Dreadnoughts are a completely different beast in Ultramarines, Space Marine Smurfs than any other Marine detachment, and Gladius specifically Ultramarines. So typically, this is bait, just so you guys know. If you're an Ork player, someone's bringing out Ballistas Dreadnought, he wants you to waste your tank puzzles on him so he can eat your tank puzzles, for example, right? So I don't give these units too much credence. Keep in mind, if anything, you should be using them to tag you and jump on an objective because you put in a dumb spot and I'm move blocking you now type of unit. I should do a video try to get a matchup on an AAR to exploit this and show you guys what I mean. Then we have a Blade Guard Veteran Squad, big old 6-man unit, like we said, for Mr. Contrast Paint. Then we have Eradicator Squad, a big brick, followed by Gladiator Lancer, big old brick of Infernus Squad, a Infiltrator, followed by a Landre de Redeemer, a Repulsor, and then a Scout Marine Squad. Now, was Repulsor the one you can jump out and then get back in, right? Yeah, I have to say it out loud, guys. Yeah, I'm not good at writing, so what? Yeah, I told you I was a little bit of a meathead, okay? Yeah, Repulsor. I thought it was the one where people can breed and bark it. Once per turn, opponent change range. Yeah. Okay, so as I remembered it as, this Repulsor's big old name to fame is that when you get out of it and you're still within 3 inches of it, if an enemy dares a charge on you, he can jump back into that Land Raider. The Repulsor, excuse me. As for, this thing came up on my screen. As for what he can do, it can hold 14 Adeptus. So he could hold those Infernus Marines if he wanted to, have them jump out, do their flamer thing, and then if you try to close the distance on them, he will jump back into his vehicle. Now, how we get around this is you charge either something near the Land Raider or you charge Land Raider itself, and you simply pile into those guys. So don't declare them. Just, there's ways to get around it. Not as easy, but there is ways to get around that ability. But when you first deal with it, you're a little bit caught off guard. But with the boy mobs, like we were saying, right, it gets absolutely devastating because it will take the majority of his assets on this list to deal with 10 snaggers on the wall and 20 boys. And then on the following turn, Dell stuff is getting cracked. You know what I'm saying? Oh, why do I have this open? what the heck, guys? Sorry. I'm just gonna remove this because why is I keep pulling it up? All right, removed it. Sorry. So then that's how you're gonna be looking at this. And as an Ork player, as a beginner player, whoever it may be, you must understand that we play an attrition-based army. You must be willing to lose your assets, but on your terms, and understanding what trades and value you can get out of that. So this is what we're talking about. I can see how this list is unfolding for our boy Tyler here, where he's like, well, I pulled it. I don't even need to do that. Where he just has not only certain assets that are on the toughness value, but points values too between the kill rigs, right? So his eradicators can't necessarily just go into gas by default now, because he actually brought some valuable multi-phase transports. If it was just trucks, if it was just a battle wagon, there's a good chance that on that go turn of the enemy's go turn, he just ignores those two units, not really respecting their potential. But if you read off the kill rig's abilities to him, oh, well, they'll get plus range, he can possibly get lethal. You know, you got T6 and T4 guys. You know, I can punch to the next level there. I can shoot you with these las cannons. I can run in and charge you, and I have OC, and I'm 16 wounds with the feel no pain. It's like, I think he's 5, right? Kill rig's like 5 OC from the last time I checked. If I remember, it's like now he has to actually take advantage, take assets and deal with that, or he has to go into gas. And then the Mega Knobs aren't like the ideal target for Eradicators because they get to reroll everything necessarily. Might not even be in range because they're little booby, little short range. So, you know, there's a good chance. That's why I do say, if you're going to bring gas, you want other stuff that actually can draw firepower off gas. It is 5 OC. Good. Firepower that draws that gas, and that's what the kill rig does. So kill rig can hurt some of these units when everybody, like, all these guys want to jump back in the transport. Well, I'll just last cannon them. Oh, you have your aggressors that want to stand in Overwatch range? Well, he'll just work cannon them, right? Start picking a couple of them up, mitigate their Overwatch. It ends up going a long way. So I'm really excited about that. Great job with that one. Let's look at his, and he got another fat 20-point W there on his game 4. And then we go into his final one. Because, you know, I like a good old-fashioned take and hold, but that means they're going to meet you in the middle and bang. Shout out to Max Holloway, right? With the point down. That's what Bully Boys is doing every game on this list. This list is essentially the Max Holloway list of Orks right now. If we can stand there with the point down, what's up? What's up? That's what Tyler was doing pretty much every game. So shout out to you, Tyler. Let's see what's up with this last matchup. Into the Grey Knights. Interesting to see Grey Knights here. We have Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knight, followed by Kaldor Drago. We're not going to go too deep in this because this is now GW released leaks, or somebody released leaks that the Grey Knights books are coming out soon. I think Kaldor's gone. But at the time of this recording, he would give his unit +3 to charge out of Deep Strike. So he would be attempting 6-inch charges out of Deep Strike with his Terminators. So we have 2-3 units of Brotherhood Terminators, followed by 3 units of Strike Squads with 2 Inceptors, followed by 2 Nemesis Dread Knights. In short, the Grey Knight player knows that he will require a ton of his units to activate and kill these 20-man mobs when they have the invul, right? What sucks for them now as Grey Knight players is the changes to Armor of Contempt, right? Typically, they take one of these stupid little Terminator squads, and they're like, well, I'll just Armor of Contempt against your whole army, and then only certain of your units can actually even threaten this unit. That's not how it works anymore. Charge you with 2 different units, only one of them is gonna, you know, you're gonna have access to Armor of Contempt to. Or if I make multiple charges, you definitely know on the multiple units, I have so much lethal and volume of punches on these lists that even with your 2-up save without Armor of Contempt, just going to 3s and going to 4s, you're getting picked up on your 2 units assets of these strike squads. They are cool because they have Storm Bolters, but their Storm Bolters aren't strong enough with their strength 4 to kill boys that well. So with this list, it's very much about don't be too tiptoey with Grey Knights. Point down and meet him in the table to bang it out, right? Get those Nemesis Dread Knights to come in, and then have Gaz crack into them as well. He's your best asset in picking them up. But even the unit knobs can pick these guys up. Now, you do have to be careful of the Overwatch from the Dreadnoughts because they have a nasty Overwatch and the Flamers into like a knob unit. But even then, if you have to, he might only kill a couple, 3, whatever it may be, maybe 4, and then you can still finish him off if you're within gas or re-rolling wounds, or if you're worried about it, you could pop the mortal wound charging strat because they have a 2-up armor and just say, I want to put mortal wounds into you, and then I'm going to punch you. And very well, they can go for the Terminators as well, right? Or just like gas crump them, whatever works best, like gas crump them. So I love the point of Tyler's list, right? Here we got another 20 point. Is that he is going to play that mid-table and draw the enemies into a dogfight that Orks love to be in, which is perpetual momentum, right? It's I'm going to meet you on the table with extreme force and violence, threat range, and actually be able to kill you with volume into a variety of targets that are on this game, just because Makari is not opening that up. And then when you do invest with your version of your all-in clapback, similar to how you would deal with how knights kind of deal with everybody else's, you know, they invest to kill 1 or 2 knights, but they still got 3 whatever knights left over, and well, they've killed their anti-knight potential. Same concept here for the Bully Boys list. What is your anti-mob potential? All these dudes that have invuls, well, I'm gonna throw a mob at you, you're gonna try to clean them up, and then everybody else is gonna come at you, and I'm gonna have taken out that asset that you use for killing them, and then on the following turn you don't have enough. I possibly even tagged you up a lot. I've taken board presence. You might still continue to kill me, but I've already won for those first 3 games of holding you in place on my terms across the mid table, and I've killed a bunch of your scoring assets if I couldn't focus down your most difficult ones. So I very much like this, right? You target of what is actually capable of murdering me, not what is the coolest, fanciest unit on my enemy list. Right, just because you're like, well, my sanguinary guard can kill and Titanic Knight, right? And so what? Right? Can you kill 22 models? Can you kill 21 models in one shot when I have my 5-up invul or not? Because guess what? My Warboss and the knob are clapping you back, and them cheeks are gonna get clapping, right? And that's what happened here. So absolutely exciting. Shout out to Tyler. If you come across this video, you know, either give a like for that or comment your own understanding and performance, Tyler, for some context, or if you know Tyler, let him know he did a great job. So shout out to that, Gip, because Orks had their performance, had their great ending of this last weekend and the team's events at least, and then we have the Dread Mob showing up and showing out. So shout out to Murder Mouth with the awesome text markers, things that I appreciate those. You can see them in the after action report. But yeah, man, I saw so few Orks at Tacoma. Yeah. There a lot of the Ork players that I checked at the Tacoma Open, I think there was 13. A lot of them had, I think one of them, the best performing one, I think was in the top 30 or 50. I don't remember. And I think he had taken 3 losses and no draw. Still, shout out to you. It's a tough matter out there. Big event at the Tacoma Open. But yeah, Orks had a hard time at the Tacoma Open. So shout out to the boy Tyler and his Bully Boys list. So of course, check that out. Thank you to everyone who put that in the votes and participated in the vote. Of course, be sure to check out the Friday stream for whatever you got to, you know, going on. Maybe just drop in or get motivated to paint with us and hang out, talk, get stuck in, get familiar with other kids in the community. Can you guys, do you understand that Ork players are literally a legendary level community when it comes to painting and kit bashing and just hobby level? Right? No one ever really thought about that. Orks are, if not the pinnacle, near the pinnacle when it comes to hobbying. So do you understand how these paint competitions get down? Have faith in your fellow Great Wall members, right? So that being said, there's only one thing to keep in mind. Is keep an eye out for those after action reports and the member videos, because we gonna knock your teeth out. Whoa.